All the negative things about Islamic, and by the way, what happened to the rest of the class? They left me. The size has shrunk. It's not lunchtime yet. Second time you had your breakfast. Okay. So we do have a justification for Islamic economic system. Several Muslim scholars have tried to argue that Islam has a distinct economic system, and in conceptual level, I agree. We do. Among them, Abul Awal Maududi Saud Kutul from the first generation, Nazatullah Siddiqui Umar Chabra Monzarka from the second generation. Now, what are the distinctive features of Islamic economic system put by them are unique objectives, unique property rights, prohibition of interest, obligation of zakat, concept of lawful and unlawful. Now, there are also other parallel systems of Islamic economy. Socialism has almost died with the breakup of USSR, and capitalism is now adopted by all former socialist states except China. Socialism is gone. Even Chinese are making modifications in their economic system to get closer to capitalism at a gradual pace. Capitalism, the real parallel, if there is any, of the Islamic economic system is capitalism. So, analysis of the justification of having Islamic economic system as a distinct doctrine will be analyzed in comparison capitalism as it is now the dominant system in the world. The analysis will explore the following features of Islamic economic system: the objective, property rights, foundation, and the concept of justice and benevolence. So what are the objective of economic system? And I am sure you have read a lot of books, you have lectured on this. Zarqa define the objective Islamic economic system as follows: guarantee a minimum level of living to every member of the society, achievement of economic power and independence, reduction of disparity of income and wealth among people. Now, all developed capitalist economies of the present day have the same objective: have some form of social security system that aims at guaranteeing the basic minimum level of living for everyone. Even in the United States, even the democracy are being fight with each other, but they agree on this minimum program. Also, I mean, achieving economic independence. They want to empower people, not only empower them, they want to empower the entire people. Have some form of progressive taxation for redistributing income and wealth. And if you read the US news, there is almost shut down the federal government because they had to, give extension to the existing tax law. If it did not give an existing and let it expire, everyone would have paid a lot more money than they have paid as tax. So what I'm saying, so a closer look at this objective will show that it is difficult to tell what is particularly distinctive in this objective that makes them unique. So capitalism has very much similar objective than Islamic. Zarqa has also identified institutions of the Islamic economic system as follows: individual ownership with corresponding social responsibility, communal and state ownership, open competitive markets observant of Sharia rules, family as a basic building block both economically and socially, state or social authority that uphold justice. Now, the above list of institutions are basic ingredients of a well-functioning capitalist system as also. Is there any difference? It supports open competitive markets, though it does not follow the Sharia rules, except Sharia, but they have a check and balance. Even the stock market, if there is a speculation, it goes up certain point, there is a circuit breaker. If there is an anti-competitive law which prevents anybody, if let's say I call up another company, I go big and monopoly power, and it can retard competition, they can block it. They say no, you can't. And if they find a very big, huge corporation has total monopoly, they break it up, like the telecommunication system in the world. In AT&T, Like 20 years and they break up into 7 groups because it was only sole, telephone company which is controlling the entire market. The family system has become weak there in the West, but that is not because of capitalism. There are wider socio-ethical reasons for that. Like in the United States, the big issue, gay marriage. And there are different states have already adopted this, and sooner or later is going to be probably adopted. In many European countries they are doing this. It's not because of capitalist principle here. It is a moral degradation, where Islam can come and play a role, even the church can come and play a role. Yeah, even the new Pope, even though he is very liberal, he is not to the level that recognizing that. Now, property rights. Muslim economy asserts that Islam has a distinct law of property, the basis of which is the theory of man's vicegerency on the earth. Actually, you are not the owner. Who is the owner? The owner is God. Everything belongs to God. We are simply a custodian. Which states that man has an obligation to share resources with others. In case an individual fails to do so, the state has the authority to intervene. However, the idea is embedded in the following assumptions. The government is perfectly just. We have a just government anywhere in the world. The state mission is honest and free from corruption. Can you say that? The government has perfect information on social and individual needs, has the capacity of striking a balance between the two. Do you know this? Even the Zakah Foundation, they do not have this mechanism or resources even to develop a database whose needs are what. You know, during the time of the Prophet Umar, he used to personally visit. It was possible for him because there are a few thousands people, right? In the city of Makkah, a small city, but now it's big. What is the population in Malaysia? 25 million or something? So how do you really, unless you have a proper check and balance mechanism? So actually that can create a problem. Let's say you are a deserving person and the money goes to somebody else and you do not feel good. System of justice, the role of is foolproof. The citizens have a right to information how the state employees exercise discretion. So you can see a different variation of this assumption exists in different Muslim countries. Some of almost non-existent, any of this. Some of the countries that exist. So there are 2 examples that we like to say 2 Muslim countries are operating on Muslim democratic principles, Malaysia and Turkey. By that I mean they change the government not by bullet but by vote. However, in practice, the assumption would seldom hold. It is perhaps for this the Quran and Sunnah are silent of this extended authority of the state. You know the question, is there any conflict between democracy and Islam? In the democracy, where does the power belong to? To the people. And Islam, the power belongs to God. Now there is a big debate in a modern state, should be a civil state or should be a theocratic state like in Iran. Now in Malaysia, by definition, is a secular constitution, right? It's a civil state. Even Islam is a state religion. Now there is a beautiful article. Read Hisham Kamali. He's a very powerful thinker. He's based in Malaysia. I read a piece by him the other day in the newspaper. So he was saying about that point that the sovereignty, are the people sovereign or God sovereign? So he said that, well, there is no conflict between Islam and democracy in the sense that it's a shuratic process. People will choose and they will offer a bayah that I'm going to follow you because I am made you leader. But if you do something wrong, we have also the power to take you down through the electoral process. So that does not conflict with Islam, but the part that whether that power that I have given you, can you say, oh, we should change the certain ayah of the Quran? So it does not give you absolute authority, but it gives you relative sovereignty. As long as you, within this big picture, that you do not have the power to change fundamentals, but you can make rules, change rules, so that it benefits maslahat. the common good for all the people. This is a beautiful rendition. You read this guy, he is a very powerful thinker. And actually he wrote the constitution, he was the constitution writing body of the Afghanistan, when they developed a new constitution. In contrast to 5 examples for the Prophet's conduct that are contrary to his principle, as he paid the price of the land to the 2 orphans, which he bought to construct the first mosque in Medina. He declared the property of an individual as inviolable in his last sermon. So it is, you cannot really take, there is different Quranic ayahs around, why you are usurping the property of the yatims, the orphans and so on. Iqbal and Miracle have mentioned the possibility to states' right to restrain the use of private property if an individual is indulging in extravagant or reckless spending. The concept is plausible but problematic to implement because it is not possible to determine conclusive benchmark for appropriate spending styles. So what you consider to be appropriate for me, you might think that is extravagant. So where do you draw the line? If you go to Saudi Arabia, you will probably say that God will punish them because of their wastefulness. If you go to any dinner party, believe me, unbelievable. The food after food, they are only 20%. I have been to many of them. Where the king invited, I was part of that. It's really the extravagant and the highest order. And if you ask this guy to pay $20,000 to a scholar to write a book, they will hesitate. Interestingly, while visiting here, somebody contacted me through the Arabia. So they want me to go there. And they want me to check their curriculum they're developing. So I said, okay, I want to take this opportunity to give a seminar. He said, no, brother, we cannot do that. I said, why? Because if we want to give a seminar, you have to take permission all the way from the top. From the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Finance. So if you want to do this, it will take us 6 months. So but I want you to come soon. You see that type of restriction they offer. And I'm sure today the Iranian authority also exercise that one. But probably they let me go, because I'm Sunni. Even though I say it doesn't matter. I've been to Iran 3 or 4 times. So other features of property law often stated by Muslim scholars, Iqbal and Miracle, focus on the following. The property should be acquired by lawful means. The property should not cause damage to others. The property should not validate an invalid claim, nor should it establish an invalid claim. Subject to the above general rules, Islam does not place an upper limit for acquisition of property. So you can, as long as it's lawful. But the question is, if you look at the civil court, most of their logjam of cases are dealing with property, inheritance, fighting brothers against each other, somebody's property. This has been measured, civil, if you observe, talk to a civil lawyer, that's what he's going to say. So, what is the difference between capitalism and Islamic economic system? Does not accept property right if it is acquired through corruption and fraud. Both systems accepts it, right? Supports this position. Private property should not cause damage to others. Both systems support this position. An invalid claim should not be validated. There is no difference between Islamic or capitalism. Lawful to acquire property through prostitution, pornography, gamble. Capitalism is fine. But in Islam, does not support except in ganting. Okay, I need to go there. That's a part of my...
He just came back from ganting.
I just came back 2 weeks. Yeah.
So we'll talk.
I visited my student for clarify.
Economic decision is guided by ethics, even though a decision is supported by criterion of profitability, prudence, and risk and role of land, and does not support. He said ethics has not a role to play in capitalist system. Really. The market is the sovereign. Market forces you. Demand and supply forces the invisible end. So there is no role of ethics or Sharia or any sort of divine values. It is also contended by Muslim scholars that distinct feature of Islamic property law is its prohibition of waste, destruction, abuse, and misuse of resources. But the practice of capitalism dilutes the conceptual difference between Islamic capitalism. There does not seem to be any substantive difference in the concept of private property and Islam and capitalism. There could be differences in details, of course, however, these differences do not define a distinct economic system for Islam. So here goes your Islamic economic system. You are not really much different. You know, one of the points, of course, is political. The West is imposing on Iran because of Israel, but one of the Iranian positions, they want to develop nuclear energy. And they should have the right. And their West position is that, well, why should Iran develop nuclear energy? Because they have vast oil resources. Just because they have vast oil resources, you are not to tell me. It's because this, you know, also their way of thinking, they come from Islamic tradition. This is not really ours. It belongs to God, it belongs to people. We simply cannot waste it. You know, in the United States, they have more oil underground than the rest of the world. Not rest of the world, I'm saying it's significant, more than Iran or Saudi Arabia. But the United States is not developing that or extracting them because they want to preserve the balance, to preserve the future. But they're telling the other people to do the otherwise. So this is the dichotomy. But having said this is only at the policy level. And the United States is not a participatory democracy. By that what I mean? Because I cannot force you to vote. Deciding not to vote is also your right. So only 40% of the people determine who will be the congressman, who will be the senator, and who will run the country, who will be the president. UK is more participatory in a sense, everybody must vote. How about in Malaysia? You can choose not to vote? So you don't like the US system, you need to change to British system to work better. Well, what is the chance of Anwar Ibrahim? You know, my driver, he speaks very broken English. No, Anwar, BN. So BN, you know, this weighing scale, and he's a fan of BN. He thinks that BN is going to win. But after talking to this intelligentsia, you know, my friends, they said, well, it will be tight election. What do you think? Who is going to form the government? Well, you don't talk about this in Malaysia. Not here, because this is a you see, that restricts our thinking. So he's paying us money. So let's look at the foundation of Islamic economic system. The Muslim economists claim that the Islamic economic system has three foundations: self-interest, individual morality, state regulation. You know, and this is five basic deen. You know, you have to protection of self. It is really. And if somebody wants to kill you, you have the right to protect, and if in this battle the other guy dies, you are not committing any sin. So they argue that capitalism operates under stark self-interest. There are no modifiers of the market outcome as in case of Islam. But the argument oversimplifies the actual operation of capitalist economies. The differences are just in degree and emphasis, because capitalist economies have developed an institutionalized arrangement for making people adhere to set basic moral norms. You really simply cannot do whatever you like. You know, you cannot have a party on Saturday night next to my house and it's bothering me. I can call the police and they can stop it. But not in Iran during Saddam's time. His son could have done that. Okay. There is regulation of private sector and control of monopolies and excessive economic power by strong regulatory bodies. In capitalist system, they have this check and balance. It's not like rampant. Anybody can do anything. The Muslim economists argue that the Islamic economic system is not based on market operations only, is guided by the principle of justice and benevolence. The argument is valid if you take capitalism in its ideal state. But capitalism has also adjusted itself to the demands of justice and benevolence over time. Almost all developed capitalist societies have now some form of social security in organized private philanthropy. Private philanthropy, do you know how much money the US, even in a secular country like the United States, 5% of their GDP. And the country's annual GDP is 1.3 trillion, so 5% is what? Billions of dollars. You tell me how many people have the guts, or the courage to donate his entire money, like Bill Gates, then Warren Buffett, $30 billion to charity. You tell me. Who is the richest man in Malaysia? The Giants.
Recent time donated about half of his asset. He's one of the richest Malaysians.
He gave half of his money to charity?
Yeah. Through a foundation.
Oh.
And Tan Sri Asma Hashim injected 1 billion to a foundation.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not as much as Bill Gates in comparatively.
So, what does that foundation do?
Our towards like more students, development, society, community.
Very good. So something good. So it is no more a system that protects the child against a pound of flesh. So you say that capitalist system is exploitative. You really cannot say this anymore. Corporate social responsibility and Islamic economic system. It is either Islam is distinct in obliging its corporate sector to play an avowed role in promoting social welfare. But recently there is an upside of it written corporate social responsibility in conventional economics and finance. Hence it is no more valid to say that capitalism stands for an immoral business environment. It is not clear from the Islamic economic literature how does the Islamic concept of corporate social responsibility differ from the concept in capitalist economy so that it is treated as a justification for a distinct economic system. What is the difference? They want to achieve the same thing. Yes, the root is different. It's coming from the Quran and Sunnah, but it is coming from some secular views. Don't worry, I'm all for Islamic economic system. I'm trying to get to the level. I'm just trying to show what are these. So all these things of comments you make, you have to be very careful what you are saying. Dimension of speculation and its impact on the distinctive economic system. The literature in Islamic economics criticizes capitalism on the role of speculation in initiating a process of economic stability as it has the tendency of dwindling into gambling. However, whenever a commercial decision is made, it has some form of speculation inherent in it. When you buy, you have the expectation opposite to the expectation of the seller, right? Because you think that the price might go up in the future, and the seller thinks that the price might drop in the future. So because of the asymmetric information, there is a trade. Otherwise, there will not be trade. So there is an amount of speculation always exists in many business dealing. The question is, what is the acceptable level? What is the excessive gora, speculation? What to define it? How to define it? How to quantify it? The Islamic criteria for differentiation between lawful and unlawful speculation is yet to be fixed. To allow the Muslim scholars to take a decisive position on speculation in options, trading, forward and futures market, and various types of foreign exchange transactions. Only at that time it will be possible to see if presence or absence of speculation is a necessary condition of the Islamic economic system or not. Grape is a fruit. You drink grape juice in the morning. So there is a fine line when the grape juice remains halal and becomes haram. So if you do fragmentary law, it's saying halal thing can become haram. So where do we draw the line, and who is going to say what is this benchmark, what is the threshold? The Muslim contribution to capitalism. The Muslims were the pioneers in capitalism as it exists today from ashes of medieval economies of Europe. The Muslim concepts of free market and profit motivation made a market improvement over the medieval Europe's Christian concept, which stifled profit motive, devalued material gains, held poverty and asceticism in high esteem, and preached contentment and other worldliness in preference to material gains in life. That's why you see a lot of monasteries in Europe. Because during this time, profit motive was considered to be sin in Islamic theology in Middle Ages. When the Dark Ages and Islam really, sprang up all the system with the values and free market, they preserved it. So Islam contributed to the development of capitalism. And our Prophet was all for capitalism. Not capitalism, but free market. Remember, there was a guy who was selling something outside of Medina, the decline. So, and Prophet ordered this guy to come within the boundary so that people can see the supply and demand and can see and determine the price. Many commercial terms used by the Muslim merchants were adopted by the European merchants. So what is the social agenda of Islam? A deeper look at the economic teachings of Islam shows that the Prophet did not have an economic agenda. Instead, he had a social agenda. The salient features of his social agenda were as follows: establishing a faith-based society that transcends tribalism, promoting the rule of law and equality of all human beings before the law. During the sermon, during the last pilgrimage, the sermon, he was mentioning people, all mankind, not all Muslims. He was referring to everyone. So promoting of rule of law and equality of all human beings before the law, protecting human dignity and universal rights of freedom for all, inculcating brotherhood and fraternity among the people, eliminating injustice and exploitation in mutual dealings, including commercial transactions, promoting justice, fairness, and equity among the people, providing social security to the poor and the weak. In brief, he intended to develop society on the basis of unity of faith, universal ethical values, justice and benevolence, and mutual well-feeling. All his instruction about business dealing focus on minimizing disputes, injustice, and exploitation. The law of zakah instead transferring wealth from the rich to the poor. Prohibition of riba, the cornerstone of modern Islamic finance, also has the same principle, where the wealthy are supposed to provide loans to the needy on interest-free basis and allow leniency and extension in recovery of the loans. Kabir Hassan. So in lending in Islam is always a charitable act, but if you want to get into commercial, you have to get different types of financing mechanism. So Islamic economic system in present day, capitalism compared. Islamic economic system propounded by the Muslim scholar has all features of capitalism. Capitalism allows maximization of profit. However, Islamic economic system, there is no upper limit of profit set by Islam. And you have to, there is no upper limit period. It is a mutual consultation. Role of the game will be the same for everyone. Nobody will have an advantage of the other. And then it's a free game. It's a free play for everyone. Social security system in capitalism they have. Every developed capitalism system, and we have the zakat. Anti-usury laws. So you cannot charge an interest more than certain part. We have the prohibition of riba. Yeah, in degree, prohibition no, but here there is a limit. Progressive taxation and the distribution income through law of inheritance. In ideal Islamic economic system, the taxation was supposed to be zakat, but also the way you distribute the inheritance was more equitable. It creates more balance. And there are papers that they have shown numerically that actually, otherwise people say why the daughter is going to get. There's a big debate and people, but actually if you calculate, take everything taken together, and this distribution is more equitable than we see in the capitalist or free market economy. I'm not an expert in this one, we have the inherent lady here. Am I right saying this? So you can really, but the question is, the way the literature exists now, it's like polling. You have to put numbers, you have to show by a case study that this is the case, look, what you're thinking is not right. Read the entire thing, not just one verse, and how that is being distributed, and find there is a difference between man and woman. economic development and full employment policies. Same thing, social well-being and reform, Islam, Islamic system. State regulation of the private sector, and you have the institution Hizbah, or institution of ombudsman in Islam. Elaborate dispute resolution mechanisms, and we have the dispute-free commercial activity. So how do you do that? Because there is no uncertainty, my Gorar, those kind of thing is made illegal in Islam. So if you look at what is the difference between the two systems, only in degree, not in kind really. So introduce the concept of spiritual capitalism. Nazatullah Siddiqui has stressed that the failure of capitalism is basically a moral failure in several of his writings. Islam has basic features of capitalism such as private property, profit motive, free and open market, and selfish human beings driven by greed and love of wealth. Hey, believe me, this guy has a big beard doesn't mean that he is not after money. But the difference between him and me is that I make money, do not pay zakah, I do not try to. But he tries to follow within the realm of the religion prescribed by him. However, Islam aims to modify the system by education, training, and persuasion of the individuals and by installing a regulatory framework for the society. This change is termed as spiritual capitalism. So what is the definition? The primary features of spiritual capitalism are the same as capitalism in contemporary societies. However, the capitalism has not given a spiritual satisfying lifestyle to the people due to its overindulgence in materialism, unending economic strife, and overstretched struggle for catching up with the Joneses. Like for example, Farah was saying she was interviewing for a thesis. The people in the urban areas and the rural areas, those are receiving zakat money for capital accumulation. And the people from the rural areas said, everything alhamdulillah. They are very content. And in the city guys say, well, alhamdulillah, but little more would be better. So you see, it depends on how purified the system and the way you have followed. So those kind of things does play a role. In the process, the anxiety and stress of a struggle for meeting financial commitments aids the inner peace and tranquility. The modern man needs economic prosperity with inner solace and spiritual peace. The spiritual capitalism presented by Islam promises to present the opportunity to the humanity. These people, they make money, they are not happy. So they are not happy, so some of them goes to alcohol, that's why alcohol consumption is high. They want to forget their own make-believe world for a while. Some people get to drugs, because that also creates the same thing. Or some people create a religion by themselves. Oh, I don't believe this capitalism, this guy, when I was growing up, was so strict, I could not date my boyfriend. So I changed. What do I go? I create the chart of scientism. The scientific, they create the different types of religion. So they are doing all these things. The question is, there's music playing. So spiritual capitalism is a dynamic concept. A society that aims at establishing spiritual capitalism will need to pass through the following 5 stages. Every later stage is built on the former. First, you need the spiritual foundations. You need the spiritual development. Just because you know this is not enough. You have to practice it. Many of us know how to read Quran. Many of us know how to pray, but we do not do that. The question is, you need practice. You have to develop spiritual consciousness that you feel pain when you see your brother or sister is in pain. That level you have to go up. Regulation and oversight, and ultimately Allah for everyone. So let's look at the first stage of the spiritual foundations. The spiritual foundation of spiritual capitalism consists of three main ingredients. Faith. It consists of unconditional belief in oneness of God, Tawheed, prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all past prophets and belief in resurrection and accountability. That you will be made alive again the day of judgment. You know, interesting, I didn't know that. In Jewish faith, there is no concept of heaven and hell. You know that? Yeah, actually, I didn't know that. They say that, well, they believe they are the chosen people. So they have given an ideology that they want to live good life on this earth. And whenever it dies, they don't know what's going to happen. Because they are chosen people. God will take care of them. So you see, because of this, the incentive mechanism is different. Because if you know that whatever I do, because I'm chosen, God will take care of me. Or if you know that, oh, if you do bad things, God is going to kick you, day of judgment. So you behave differently because the incentive is different. Righteous acts. Righteous acts consist of 5 daily prayers, fasting during the month of Ramadan, paying zakah, performing Hajj once in a lifetime, and following the restrictions of halal and haram. Interpersonal relationship. The interpersonal relations should be based on the principle of justice and fairness and benevolence, adl and ihsan. Oh, I'm going to be bad to this guy because this guy is a Hindu. No, you have to treat them with the benevolence, adl and justice. And this is your, this is your poster. You're a Muslim, you're supposed to be. But look at what we are doing. I'm not saying in general, I'm saying that some of the behavior that we suppose is both ways too. There is a myth that Buddhist is a religion of peace. Look what is happening in Burma. Buddhist monks are killing the Muslims. So now they are seeing the other face of the other things too. But in Islam, inherently, I'm sure in Buddhism, in their scripture, it is not there. They go and kill in the Muslim. So it's a fanaticism. The question is how we control it. It is not really having only the state regulation or you connect it with someone. It is also you. It has to be your own guide, police, judge. Second stage, spiritual development. The spiritual development of Tazkiyah refers to the development of human character or behavior once the basic conditions of faith and righteous acts are met. Now if you do all these things, first of all, that will make a good human being. Very good. I mean, if you just pray 5 times a day, at least, let's say half an hour each, 2.5 hours you are not going to do any bad things, right? It's impossible. Out of 24 hours, at least 2.5 hours you are doing. It's not like very interesting. In our society, or the part of the world we are from, when you pray, we are really serious. But in Saudi Arabia, or the Arab countries, prayer 5 times is a cultural thing to them. From their birth, when they are used to praying 5 times. So the impact of praying is less on them than on us. And you'll find I have my Arab students, Saudi Arab students, every time I go to mosque, they pray 5 times with the Zaman, Allahu Akbar. And right after the prayer, they go straight to the bar. So, I'm saying that, so this praying 5 times is part of their culture, has become. Yes, it is part of a culture, but we take it more than that. You see what I mean? So, the spiritual, the foundations is not enough. You have to do development. Tazkiyah, how do you do that? You should for spending, gratitude, repentance, trust in God, patience, contentment, sacrifice, moderation. So you have all these things. Society has to, some way, provide you the environment. Third stage. The third level of spiritual capitalism is building human personality to achieve spiritual consciousness, taqwa. The spiritual consciousness consists of 3 segments. Consciousness about the ever-present, all-knowing, and all-seeing God. Oh, there's a $500 bill sitting there. Nobody's seeing. But if you believe in God and see that He's seeing you, it's not going to happen. Well, you take it and look for the guy who did that. Didn't you hear? I do not know how this true story. You know, the father of Hazrat Abdul Qadir Jilani, adalah, you know, he was very hungry. He was walking and he found an apple was coming down the stream, and he got the apple and ate it. Then he realized he must have taken somebody else's property without his permission. So he was following upstream, and finally he found the owner of this apple tree and apple. Then that guy was a pious man. So he found another genius, the pious man. Said, "Well, I'm sorry, I was hungry, I ate." He said, "Okay, so you came to repent?" Said, "Yeah." "Well, only one condition. I will, forgive you. You have to marry my daughter." That was a good tip for a brother. But what I'm saying is the taqwa level, you know, where you go. The consciousness about accountability to God. Consciousness toward the rights of others. 4-stage regulation and oversight. The human beings have an inherent tendency to deviate from individual behavioral norms. Because shaitan the classic struggle between the evil and good and evil is always continuing. So you see, shaitan is working full time upon you because you follow this. He's trying to take you away from it. And shaitan has last time the person who are not following this because they have already joined the rank. So you may deviate, right? So it is not always, even though you do all these things internally, before regulating human behavior, Islam visualizes an active role for the state and society through motivation, education, guidance, training, and legal action. So in this kind, for this to this, if you go to Saudi Arabia, they have the religious police, Mutwa. In Iran, I'm sure there are some sort of police too, right? The guard of, decency and all these things in the name. I was in Saudi Arabia in December. I was teaching courses on finance in university. Do you know in Saudi Arabia they have total segregation? Total segregation in a sense that they have classes for the women, classes for the men, and they have different campuses. Even if the lecturer or professor is a guy and he's teaching female students, he doesn't see the female student at all. How do you lecture? Post some activity. Now, same thing with the other. Now, I had this unique opportunity. And for the first time, I have also seen so women. Believe me, they're beautiful. It's an appreciation. So what happened? So they have this, they have the divider. So one side the guys, the other side the girls. So I can see them both, but they don't see each other. Not only that, the entrance for the female and the male are different. And there are always three, bearded guy, motorized standing, so that they never really mix. Now you think we did this technological development work. We're so technologically. I didn't know about, I was the last person in my family to have an iPhone. But finally they have the iPhone 4, I have the iPhone 5. Because of the last. So there's a technology they call FaceTime. You can talk to, anywhere in the world without any money. It doesn't cost you anything. I didn't know that. So I get to see the beautiful face of my wife every day. She's very angry with me. Why do I travel so much? But I'm saying, why bringing this issue? I asked them. You probably have noticed that I'm a very friendly guy to the students in my talk. So I asked this guy, how do you guys marry and talk, in the West? And they usually call dog. Don't worry, I have a girlfriend. I said, how is it possible? Good technology. Then you show me, the picture of it. So they do not see each other, and all of them have a boyfriend and girlfriend. So I said, how you? At least you have to find out before you decide this is your girlfriend or this is your boyfriend. So we go to the shopping mall. So I said, isn't there a religious police there watching? He said, yeah, but you develop a sixth sense. So you target. And the frequency has to match. So what I'm saying,
That's innovation.
yeah, that's an innovation. What I'm saying, some way, whenever too much restriction, people try to be innovative. So I said, well, do you get to see your girlfriend? Yes, not here, in Dubai. So his girlfriend goes to Dubai, he goes to Dubai, 1 hour flight, and they are rich, they don't care. So I'm saying that you need to have some sort of regulation, even all these things. But you should not really, stand is too much. And that was one of the problems in Iran too, but the government is trying to relax. People will dance, this and that. You try to make sure that they do not do any deadly sin. That's the best you can do, right? And one of these good things, I like the Khomeini when he came. Actually, he did not really allow co-education, because his position was that these are the 50% of my population. They have to be part of the economic system. They will be working together. So if they grow up together, the sensitivity will be lessened. Because when something is being made haram or restricted to you, your inquisitiveness increases. You want to see what it is. Okay, so you need a regulation and oversight. For example, Islamic government to regulate investment decision on the basis of ethical norms. It will intervene to block investment in gambling houses. So you take it to gambling, not everywhere. Liquor production and pornography, for diverting the resources toward more compelling needs and promoting spiritual economy in the society. However, abortion regulation does not provide government functionaries freedom to encroach upon private property and privacy of individuals. It only gives the state role of a referee for maintaining justice and fair play. So you have the Internal Security Act has been repealed in Malaysia, or still there? Do you have an Internal Security Act where the government can come and get you? It is ISA, right? It's no longer there, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Well, we have new law.
To replace that one. In a different name, same thing. Fifth stage, Falah. The goal of spiritual capitalism is to attain Falah. The term Falah means to thrive, become happy, and have lack of success. In Islamic parlance, it refers to conditions which manifest success both in the life of this world and in the hereafter. In the present day life, it means physical survival, freedom from want, and military power. In the hereafter, it means eternal survival, everlasting prosperity, and everlasting glory. Now, these are the different stages you have to attain. It is not only, and it is, that's the reason it is very difficult to establish in Islamic economic system capitalism with spiritual capitalism. Now, moving towards spiritual capitalism, human nature is ridden by several influences. Inborn tendencies, selfishness, love for wealth, greed, envy, jealousy, and wickedness, besides influences of the society, government, and global forces. Therefore, for ushering an era of spiritual capitalism, we shall need to take the following steps. Education and training of individuals both at home and in education institutions, the faith and spiritual practices of Islam. This is where we start. Actually, starting should be even in the kindergarten, when a child is born. Then you come here, we improve the level of difficulty to injecting different levels of education. Of course, if it is Islamic economics, fine, accounting, fine, but it has to come from basic perspective. Develop a course of ethics for business firms relating to all stakeholders. And I must say, there are a lot of Islamic organizations, governments are doing a great job in developing. I'm not really a pessimist, I'm very optimistic. So we are in the right direction. Developing a system of monitoring the behavior of individual business firms related to compliance with the spiritual and moral course of practices. And to a degree, we are also doing that. You guys are writing theses, government is making policy, you are, electing parliament, and and they are coming with new ideas. So that's happening in a different degree. Creating a strong institution to regulate organizations so that power is decentralized, rule of law is ensured, interests of various stakeholders are protected, monopolies are avoided, and waste, corruption, and fraud are restrained. Ensuring systemic development of leadership. And actually, I like the model in Malaysia and also in Turkey, the way they build up their grassroots level to leaders. Even if you are the son of Prime Minister, you have to start from the bottom. But if you come to our country with the son of Prime Minister, you become the next Prime Minister. But it doesn't happen in Malaysia. It doesn't happen in Turkey either. Well, it happens to be in Iran because how we belong to, right? No?
Our political system is completely different. But in Turkey, Malaysia, and Tunisia recently have same political system.
That's all. Now the question is, you're probably wondering, so where does today's lecture supposed to be the ideas of research in Islamic and banking finance, right? Yes. This is how we should get the ideas. We know where the lacking is. Now you have to really, soul search. You have to look at what are your skills. And you should take a subject in any topic which your skills can allow you to do. And of course you have to refine your skills as well in the process. Now, if you come from, let's say, humanities background, soft subject, I cannot ask you to write an economic model. And that should not be interested. You should not really take a topic as your research topic. Because you will be toiling and you will not do a good job. You should pick a topic where you have a comparative advantage. Now, yesterday I said there are 3 areas the research can progress. One is epistemology, so this will be an example of epistemological research. What are the problems, this and that, and so on. But I would not start with that one, because you really need very high level of intellectual maturity and wisdom to reach that level. And this is not my thoughts here. These are the thoughts just compiled together and telling you. So I'm just sharing this knowledge. It is not even mine. There are people who have thought about it. I'm just conveying the knowledge to you. The second one could be developing models. And developing models, so you need a methodology, foundation. And the foundation could be spiritual capitalism. And from there you try to develop, let's say you want to develop a model for consumer behavior. But in order to do that, you need to have these skills. You have to be very good in mathematical modeling, you have to be very good in economic theory, and ask yourself whether you have it or not. If you don't go into this direction. The third one is empirical research, which 99% of you do. What is empirical research? One could be, I said, survey, because you do not have any secondary data. And 90% of the research that I have seen is survey-based research. You have to slowly get away from that trend, because there is enough data being generated, secondary data. Sukuk is an area, is under-researched. You can look at the Sukuk pricing, how it differs from conventional. And data is available. You can bring corporate finance into this thing, event studies, in the Sukuk capital market. You can look at the mutual fund. There's a huge amount of mutual fund. You can do a sort of very good scientific work with mutual fund data. Okay, you can have stock market. You have different indices. So these are the secondary database that you can use. Now, if you do survey, but you can really read the data to tell your story. You can develop the survey instrument in such a way so that it tells you what you want it to tell, right? So that's why from the publication standpoint, because you need to publish in good journals, get to promote it, the survey research has less appeal to the mainstream journals, but these other types, secondary data analysis, has more appeal, you can sell it better. So you have to really also keep a balance between these two, because you do not want to remain senior lecturer forever, right? You need to move up because it also gives you more money, more prestige, and more consulting money from outside. And then you want to become a professor, everybody will say, for the rest of your life, Prof. Amri. So this kind of thing. So this is all. And of course, I'll have more chance, you have to choose the right supervisor. When I say the right supervisor, I mean a person who likes what you're doing and has the knowledge and also wants to help you. What I find in Malaysia very often, the supervisor don't even know what the hell is supervising. Not many, but I found, because whenever I go to different places when I'm visiting professors, so I have the same thing. And 3 or 4 instances at UiTM and UiTM, they case, so you are a PhD student? I said, yeah. For how long? For 1 year. So you don't have a topic? So no. Prof, I'm looking for a topic. So what is the supervisor? Well, he doesn't have time. So I came to you for a topic. You have that, so you really cannot progress. But at the same time, you'll find the people who are really willing to help, they're overburdened. So when they're overburdened, there's human limitation. If a person can supervise 5 effectively, when it becomes 10, then you become Professor Abdul Ghaffar. You don't say it. But it is not his fault really. So you have to have this critical number of supervisors who is willing to give you the time. By the way, Ghaffar is my best friend. That's all I have to say, unless you have any questions. So if you have a question, I'll take 3 or 4 questions, okay? No question, you understood everything?